Okay, here's another Oopart out of Egypt itself. What we're looking at here is what's known as a bath, like a bathtub. It's kept at the Vatican though now, and it's been there for quite some time. It's on exhibit right on an outside area, and it's pretty huge. Guessing from the size of it, I mean, the guy that's up here in the top of it here is 6 foot, and he could lay down there and have easy room on the inside left over by far. I'm going to guess it's about 8, 9 foot, maybe 10 foot long. I don't have the measurements on it. It's cut on the inside to a perfect edge. Supposedly from the middle or old kingdom, just kind of thrown out there somewhat, supposedly associated with something. Aswan granite, blah, blah, blah. So you look at this granite here, and it's been sculpted out and had a lip put around it and a conical bottom, apparently all chipped out off of it. But it doesn't look chipped, it's just not polished. In fact, they're really not the tool marks that you would expect to be on around there, even though it's rough. But that's not the Oopart thing, and the Oopart thing is that you're looking at it itself. For this piece would have been like 70 tons of granite transposed. But then they, of course, sculpt this whole thing out, and I think this thing weighs like 16, 18 tons, something like that, supposedly. And that's just one dude's guesstimate. I don't think they've put the thing on a scale. Just guesstimates on. So, weird thing is, it's about 4 to 6 inches thick at the bottom, and the lip comes up from 6 to about 4 inches, and you have this lip and perimeter going around in it. And if you look at the sheen that you're looking at here, this thing is highly polished. The edge radius cut right here is fantastic. There's chipping out on the edge of it and stuff like that, but this is granite, which is a mixture of what is Egyptian and obsidian. So that's what the black stuff is in here. And what I've always thought was amazing about this, and just granite in general, that it'll have these little veins that run through it and things like that. That's neat. But then you'll have, well, that's marble generally, but you'll have things like this, and it's literally just a mixture of salt and pepper and something else, or red and pepper and something else, in an exact mixture that's not perfected. Everything's not just this size or that size. There are weird shapes a little bit, but not much. And it's so uniformed, and it's formed metamorphically or volcanically like, so it's a burp up where it's gotten mixed together. But when it gets mixed together, it doesn't get mixed smoothly in little bitty pieces. And you can find stuff that has smaller chip and harder chip. One of the only places they have red granite like this in the world, other than Aswan, is down here in Texas. Yeah, the site called Llano, and it's Llano. And near there's a place called Enchanted Rock, and it's these big bald head. It's batholiths. I did a video about it, and it's big bald heads sticking up out of the earth. It looks dinosaurish, weird, and they're huge, giant batholiths. And the Capitol building in its pink granite was made out of it, and it's not exactly the same. and I think they call it pink granite versus rose granite. So there's that slight difference, but it's only been used for a few things, as I understand it. So it's almost like sacred. So you look at this thing and it's got this weird shape to it. For outside of this thing, there's a lip going all the way around it, and you can see the lip going all the way around it. Oh, by the way, just a sidestep. So then they've got a fountain here, right? It looks like it's been solidified in or something somehow, or maybe it's supposed to be just a tablature, like a sacrificial altar or something along that line. In the background there's another bathtub, and it's thinner. But no telling when they're going to give that credit for, or say it's Roman thing or something like that. I'm not sure. Old columns are in this part here, and you can tell they just walk right out into the open areas in between this. So this is in a foyer area going in. And these statues that look like David and so on around here. But if you look real close, there's that griffin. We always talk about how that's a Proto-European, Indo-European thing, and how that works with the tattoos that they had and stuff. But so wherever Mary went, the lamb was sure to go, and that thing carried, you'd see it in Persia all the way through into modern mythology of Europeans. But this guy does tours and things, and he'll go here to the Vatican area, but he went to Egypt quite a few times, and he even runs tours and stuff. But what he is specialized in and known for is Inca tours. And he'll go to the major Machu Picchu and da-da-da, but he'll also go out to some place, Ollantaytambo, where you're going to, well, I've heard of that, I'll take you there. In fact, he's been there a bunch of times. He's been here a bunch of times, been here a bunch of times. There are other places that are new to him still, and he goes. I don't know if he's been to Göbekli Tepe yet. But a lot of the people that he's in contact with do and everything, so he runs tours, stuff like that. But back to this thing and its oddities. What gets me about this granite is that this Aswan granite, everybody says, yeah, it's all uniform pretty much like this, and there's a huge deposit of it, and they've used it from places that are found all the way up into Europe, all the way, and to have transported pieces that they're using for this, even in this boats of the day and everything, would have been an incredible adventure that's almost ununderstandable. Sure, the blocks on the pyramid, but the blocks on the pyramid aren't even as big as this piece right here. Sure, there's a solid block, but this was a solid block and then worked into something that's thin that looks like modern day fiberglass ones that they form fit. If you ever watched a machine do it, they have air suction thing that pulls them down, and they put this sheet over on it that they've heated to an exact temperature of this fake marble, and then and it sucks to that thing, and it's weird to watch. And boom, there's a little molding thing, and you go, well, that's how they do the little molds of plastics, that stuff comes in and things like that. Yeah, it's just done in a bigger way and done just about perfect, and not everyone works out great, so they have to get this mold and its breathers and everything set up just right. But that's done in a synthetic fake way. This is out of real granite here. And I can't press upon you how many times I've seen people that work with stone, which he's brought with him in some of his videos, and they literally are geeked by what they're looking at. They're like, okay, I've got stuff today and this would take me forever. And then they go, well, here's a little round rock and this little funny wood hammer dowel daub top, and you're gonna make that. Geeked. I don't know if you believe that somebody pounding with a rock would end up with anything like this, and how good you'd have to be of a stone caveman work with rock to be able to pound rocks to end up coming up with, what the hell are you telling me? something that looks like a modern sauna. It's got that rim around it, and the rim is perfect. It's like the size of your hand cupped over around that rim, and then from there it all tapers away just like that. Falls off the edge just each side. So you couldn't put soap on it or anything or shampoo. It'd lean out and try to fall off. It's not that lean, but there's a lean to it. So it doesn't look like there was ever a lid to this thing, but if they did, it's set up for a hermetical seal. And I'm going to have to do another video about hermetical seals and type things, but I always remember hearing about it, how they were doing that to Grandma's beans whenever she was sealing them inside those jars so they'd last for years. Yeah, that was hermetically sealed. And then the other place I heard about it all of a sudden was on Johnny Carson's show, and he would put on the little hat or the big turban deal, and then he would take letters and put them up to his head, and he was reciting back and telling you what was, and it was always the joke and the punchline. He would tell you the punchline, and then here came the little question that made the joke off of it. But they had all been hermetically sealed on Funkin' Wagnall's porch since Thursday. And then Ed McMahon would go, no one, and he would say it so loud that Johnny would usually just startle off of it. But no one has seen these things or anything but you with your great powers and blah, 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 and he could do it. So hopefully you all remember that type thing. But hermetically sealed gives it more than a lip. They end up having a lip. A lot of these things have an inset. So there's deals where it comes in and lips down and goes like this. And so the lid that comes in also looks like this. And whenever it seals, it doesn't just seal here pretty flat around, or even right here pretty flat around, but it's also sealing here pretty airtight. And all they got to do is take some bitumen and put it around those things and set it in there, and that's airtight. No bacteria can get in it and all this type thing. This is the wisdom of Hermes from the Wayback Machine. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense with their, they act like they were all running around like cavemen, like not knowing what was going on, and some guy named Narmer showed up, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they were like, I'm going to make a bath like this, and we're going to throw together some pyramids. And it's like, you're missing the possibility of how this could have happened. Then there's Ooparts. Not like this granite, but what's weird to me is all those other bowls and vases that they showed. Yeah, they show that they're making advanced pottery, and it's bam. Just like you put on a potter's wheel today, and you get somebody doing it and learning how to make an exact kind over and over again, and they can recreate it over and over again. It looks good, right? By hand. But they want to show off enough to where they take and make them out of granite. Not out of easy stone to make too, but out of this perfect granite. So it's usable stoneware. Some of it has thin lips all the way around it, and you could barely fit your fist into it, but inside it's concaved around to where it's just ½ inch or less all the way around, a little thicker on the bottom, maybe flattened out. And they tell you, well, I don't know, well, they drilled a hole saw to start out with, and then hold on, you said hole saw, and you're not supposed to have some kind of hole drill concept going on, especially these people are at the point of drill. Then you have to give them a lot more technology that led up to that. You can't just pull this thing where they know how to do like an Indian and zip and drill little holes and stuff and beads and just somehow made that up to a bigger, well, it can work that way, but there's a lot of things in between. And that didn't happen, or at least it's not shown. Nobody speaks about it. It's just one of 1,000 things people don't speak about. But where did that granite come from? You look at them and they have Dalmatian looking ones that are black and white blotches. Some of them are huge little chunks of it. Looks like some kind of ice cream creation with chocolate chunk and this, that, and the other in it. Creamsicle swirly ones and everything. And it's like, in incredible forms. of just this granite they were finding stone. And most of these stones, by the way, when you see them and they're all dirty and everything, it doesn't look anything, just like lapis lazuli. That blue stuff they use on all the things around of it looks gray. It looks gray, and you throw some water on it, and it's like bang, and it's the color of the sky or richer. I mean, what the hell? I mean, were people taking and going around sawing in the mountains and chipping out pieces and then throwing water on it and go, yeah, this will polish up real good? They'd have to be at the point of already making stuff like this to want to polish something up like that. I mean, you can say that they were trying to make little rings or little things like that, but you can't really, they're too chunky. You can't make a ring or something real small out of like this. You can do it out of jade and other things. And the obsidian they're real familiar with for chipping and flinting and all this stuff. And that leads to the Wayback Machine, but this doesn't have anything to do with that, does it? This thing could be hermetically sealed real good, but you'd have a weirdo top onto it. But it's this oval shape right here. And it looks like a giant jacuzzi of nowadays. And you can see the shine around on it. And you can see the guy reflected in it and everything. There's a hell of a polish to it. And sure, down in the insides here, it's graying in areas. And I guarantee due to wear and usage and things, and perhaps sand getting in it and out a bunch of times, somehow it took the edge off of that. And I bet if you felt that, it's not glassy. And there's another effect too, where down inside here you can see this squarish almost shape and then another squarish thing behind it, but this has a little extra on that side, and this side looks like something kind of built like that went up to there. And so what that was, well, look how tall this is. What are the people going to do to get in this thing if it's a tub or anything? Are they going to climb over into it? Well, they had stones in there and a step set where you go step, step, and then you can step out. And man, if you stepped on that and you were wet, you would real quick, it would be a problem off that. You must hold their hands like they did and such, but they probably had a wooden type platform built up to it and everything, and then they walked back down the stairs on the other side, something like that, getting in and out. Things come to mind though whenever I was looking at this picture, like, well, a bunch of it. Like, how many shadoofs of water, basically a gallon or a little more, would it take to fill that thing up, to make a tub? Well, Cleopatra took baths in milk in a huge tub. It was all finely polished and da-da-da. Was it something like this? How much milk is she taking a bath in? How often is she doing this? What the hell? There's some things like this that, well, this one's got a little dark spot in it right there. And some of them have a hole at a certain height, and it's core drilled, and right out the side of it. And they say, well, they would sit and pour water into it till it flowed out there, or maybe even continue to freshen the water for people. And it would flow out of there, and it could flow out of there into different places and down into other things and end up in this pool or run a fountain if it's going downhill and has enough pressure and things to it. But they don't give credit for all that type of stuff too. But there's some bird bath looking things that they have out in Aswan area that look real conspicuous, and it's strange. It looks like the bottom pedestal of a pillar that would have been there, but instead of being the pillar, it's all just kind of smoothed out and little dents, and there's holes cut in each one of them, and you could put them together, ring them up, and it would be like bird baths hooked up to run water between each other. It's all real polished out too. It's like, what the hell is that? That's a different Oopart. Look at this one here. I mean, look at the way the sides sculpt down into it. It's uniform, and I haven't put my hand across this to tell you if it has any wiggle to it, but everybody says that it doesn't, and it's like perfect, as near as perfect as you could get in a modern day. And conspicuously, this radius that goes on here and the circuit around that thing is much like the circuit or the circus. And I bet if you measured it out, it'd be like that same sacred geometry point of the circuit and running, the furlong. But they have wheel cuts that they have found that have a radius on them that are pretty much about the radius of this right here going down. Let me scoot this up. Like you can see that radius. They have cuts that are to like that radius, and ones that are bigger. There's this one that they turned around and they said, well, a radius like that would take a spinning thing almost 30 foot around. So the blade in your saw is 30 foot around, and it's cutting this. Somebody's pushing it through, or what's going on here? It's not shown on the walls. They kept things as a secret, didn't they? Didn't show everything, that's for sure. See if I can get that right. Definitely didn't show everything. In fact, to this day, we marvel on things from the old days. I remember being a kid and having this Marvels of the Ancient World book. Hardback, pictures, decent size. Then I have the Seven Wonders of the World and little depiction things of them, but then a bunch of other places too, and some of these things that are almost Ooparts, where you're like, well, you kind of remember the old world the way it looked, right? What the hell is this? It wasn't even bringing in things like Antikythera mechanisms or super clockwork things like that, or anything at this point. But you look back at this thing here and you go, no. I fail to believe that you could rock pound something, anything like this, and end up getting it and then sanding it smooth like this. Just rubbing it with sand, or what are you going to do? I mean, you could take leather and chap it real bad, and then take and impregnate that with sand and then rub on this thing, okay? And you can smooth it down, but you're never going to pull off a finish like that. Well, from there, you'd have to polish it. You'd have just like you do, you'd have to have a series of polishing. You're going to give the people credit for that stuff too, huh? Well, we can't. We have to. Because they've got all this ancient stuff. In fact, from the early pre-dynastic even, there's this Nakata culture and stuff, and they had all these Ooparts that are associated with them, and then they buried them all in this Osiris type thing, and they found thousands of them, thousands of them. And they've got them in the exhibit there that you can look at. Not just the schist disc that's there and the thing that looks like a car steering wheel and all kinds of things like that, which already, I mean, how are you going to chip that thing out? Tell me you can hit rock on rock and do that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Doesn't make any sense. Even in a modern day, where we have the ability to do things like that at ease, we know that what it takes to do that, they had nothing like it. But yet here it sits. Giant tonnage spa hot tub. How many people could you get in that tub? Look at him there, standing up in it. So if he stood up in it, he'd only be a little bit taller. It's more than waist deep on an over 6 foot tall man. So you could fit, well, 2 in the end and at least 2 down the whole way, and probably fit like 12 people in there standing up easy. That's a hell of a hot tub. Well, do they have hot water, things like that? Imagine the amount of water they're having to carry to fill this thing up if you're to believe this is to be the tub for somebody, and then somebody's taking all the water out of it and cleaning it, and then they're having to fill it back up again the next day. It's almost like somebody's job would be to do that. And how many hours of going and getting water and bringing it back and getting water and bringing it back and getting water and bringing it back. You can imagine whenever they had the ancient tubs and they had the well out there that you pumped, and how you'd pump a bucket full and you would carry it into the house and fill up the tubs and do the things that led up into a modern day that everybody had going on. And how many times a kid would have to go back and forth fetching a pail of water just to make that tub full. And by the way, when it's your turn to take a bath, if you don't want to take a bath in everybody's dirty water, we're going to dump this thing out and you have to do it all again. How big is your family? Some of these things, you know, aqueducts and all this bringing water and everything, people nowadays just really go, yeah, but it was quite a feat. And the aqueducts are one thing, and still those people that made the aqueducts were like, what the hell is this? Yeah, and they ended up, Romans and Greeks before them ended up recreating it. And look, there's statues in the background here. They made stuff that was so much more real looking than most of the Egyptian stuff, but some of the older kingdom stuff shows a realism appearance that just kind of comes out of nowhere and is only in a few statues, and then it's gone. Then you see Greeks making things that are like that, but no, they're not standing in that same way. There's this ease of movement. Look at the guy behind him, casually kicking his legs and everything. It's just natural posing thing, and they took a piece of rock and chipped that out. Oh, Michelangelo and da-da-da and everything. You know, some sculptors, man, that's some shit right there. I can draw pictures pretty damn good, but as far as being able to do something like that, that's pretty amazing. You get the point that this tub is just as damn amazing as that statue of David over behind him. Almost. And then again, maybe more. I mean, how many tons of rock, and they're moving it. They just, everything that goes with it. You know, oh, well, a tub as good as the statue of David. What the hell is he talking about? No. They made a tub out of 70 tons of being granite that's polished and thousands and thousands and thousands of years before that statue of David. Like, they're more closer to our time that built statue of David in relation to the time that this was built with the box. It's just bewildering if you go with a modern narrative. If you think outside the box, then everything starts making more sense, but you'd have to have concepts like, well, they had that meteorite iron weapons and the stuff, and so they had tools made out of that, but nobody ever found them because the artisans left whenever they quit doing that. Where'd they go? I don't know. It looks like the Greeks used some pretty cool stuff. Isn't that amazing? Just the shine in that and looking at it and everything. It's like, yeah, this is not some rough-hewn box. And they've got old ones, too, that show this polishing. And you can look down the side, and yeah, it's got a hair of a wiggle. And you're like, try to do better. How long would you have to do before you could get it just pow? Better than that out of this material. Here's a rock. Pound on it for a while. Anyhow, guys, just another Oopart here. One of many. Peace.